praises to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Chakodash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, a great millstone, rule and teach well. Peace, love, salutation to the elect 144 first fruit. All right, so now we're back at you with another lesson about Russia. So I know I did a lesson a few days ago speaking about what the next steps for China may be and could be, since they had strong relations with Venezuela, as did Russia had strong relations with Venezuela. And what should the next steps be? Few articles here that can paint the picture of what their next steps could be. And then, of course, we're going to get the scripture in Ezekiel 38 chapter, which tells you the definitive steps that will be taken that Russia is going to do. You know, in all honesty, the title of this lesson is kind of rhetorical in a sense, if that's the right word to use, because there's not much Russia can do about it right now. It is what it is. What United States did to Venezuela is what it is basis right now. Literally, United States is showing they can do whatever it is that they want to do, and they actually can, because who is going to stop them? And also, America's moving. Who dares to stop them? So, got an article here from thehill.com, and I'm going to watch a quick clip. Matter of fact, let's watch this quick clip real quick, because what I really want to bring out is the fact that, you know, the U.S. took over and seized an oil tanker, all right? And I'm going to bring out, like, maritime laws, which are, you know, it deals with international waters and things of that nature. We're going to start at territorial waters, but let's play this real quick. And I'm going to read it as it plays. So it says, no state has the right to use force. This is what Putin is saying. And the reason he's bringing this out is because of maritime laws and the fact that the high seas are technically, how can I say this? I don't want to say like uncharted or, you know, lawless in a sense, but kind of. When you look into maritime laws, because there's a certain jurisdiction that each country has when it comes to the sea, and then when you get to the high seas, shit gets a little sketch. All right, so then therefore, you know, piracy. If you go watch my previous lessons about the escalation coming up all the way to this point that we see now between the United States and Venezuela, the escalation to it, the United States was very, very like closed off to what they were doing, meaning they were not transparent on their reasonings for their movements in Venezuela. So definitely could be some laws broken there in the international waters, but we'll take a look. So let's play. It says Russia slams Bella 1, which is the oil tanker, seizure. It says on December 24th, 2025, the vessel Marinera was granted temporary permission to sail under the state flag of the Russian Federation, issued in accordance with the Russian legislation and the norms of the international law. This is what Putin is saying. Today, at around 1500 Moscow time, in the open sea beyond the territorial waters of any state, U.S. naval forces boarded the vessel. Communications with the ship was subsequently lost. It says, in accordance with the provisions of the 1982 UN Convention, the law of the sea and the high seas, which we're going to bring out a little bit because it mentions it right down here, right here. Okay. In this paragraph, we're going to read a little bit on that. All right. So he's pulling out the books on the United States. But like I said in the inception of this lesson, I know I'm naming this next steps, but what can you really do right now, Russia? other than make statements claiming your side, are governed by the principle of freedom of navigation, and no state has the right to use force against vessels duly registered under the jurisdiction of other states. All right. So now let's go into the maritime law. It says territorial waters. Every country with the coast has sovereignty of territorial waters, also known as territorial sea. A country's territorial sea extends 12 nautical miles from the coast, if I'm saying that correctly. It says the state has sovereignty over the water as well as the airspace over it in the seabed under it. So pretty much that 12 nautical miles is equivalent to about 13 miles if you were to walk, run, bicycle, or drive a vehicle. It's equivalent to 13 miles. So 13 miles off the coast of Florida is the extent of international waters for the United States. So prime example, if you go on a cruise and you want to go to Cozumel, Mexico, or some shit like that, I don't know. All right. Once you hit the 13 mile or the 12 nautical mile threshold, your services for whatever phone carrier will probably go down unless you have some type of international plan on your actual phone. But in this case, in this instance, if you don't, then you will have no more service because you are not serviced in the United States. You are now in international waters, or you're now outside of the United States in international affairs. Okay? So with that being said, okay, when the United States attacked those little boats and sent Hellfire, whatever, missiles to them, we got to look that up to see if that was within that 12 nautical miles, which I don't think it was. And they overtook an oil tanker, which Putin is now pissed about. And now America is sitting on, 17 billion, whatever, gallons of, I don't know what it was, of oil. And Trump said he's going to just seize it and do whatever the fuck he wants with it. He says it's America's now. Pretty much Venezuela itself is America now. All right. America's pretty much annexed that place and took it over. So let's go to the next one. It says contiguous zone. It says states can also claim an additional 12 miles to create contingent. I'm a non-reading. Oh my goodness.
Contiguous.
Contiguous. I said contingency. Contiguous zone. It says this extends 24 miles. Matter of fact, the word contiguous means sharing a common border or touching. So that we know what contiguous means. It says this extends 24 miles for the country's coast. The authority of the country is more limited in this zone. It has authority over customs, immigration, and sanctions within this zone. So we're getting somewhere here. Okay, it's touchy. It's a touchy topic when you're dealing with naval forces and taking over, things of that nature. And that's, the laws and the legislations. Matter of fact, I always bring this out in Daniel 8, because I always go into the policy, okay? And that word policy means government, okay? And the practice of the government. So through his practice of the government, or through his policy, also he shall cause craft to prosper, okay? Which is skill, all right? So he is pretty much, what this is insinuating is these Edomites are extremely skillful when it comes to government or geopolitical movements, henceforth, why no one can do anything about stopping or saying or whatever of what United States just did. What are you going to do? Who created the law? You know what I'm saying? Let's go down really quick. I want to get to that. Yeah. How does jurisdiction work in international waters? No nation has sovereignty over the high seas. Boom. No nation has sovereignty over the high seas. Sovereignty. It says supreme power or authority. So, like I was saying earlier, oh man, this is getting touchy. So, like I was saying earlier, I mean, when United States takes over an oil tanker in the high seas, and like I say, there are maritime laws, but when it comes to the high seas, it's gray area. It's shaky. It's not necessarily lawless, but is there a law? Because necessarily not everybody has jurisdiction over the high seas. Not everybody has authority. So technically it's piracy in the high seas. So you're at your own risk. If you are not a naval force, like with artillery, aircraft carrier, shit like that, it wouldn't be too wise for you to be in the high seas. Because if anything happens to you from another nation and they attack you or take you over, then what? See what I'm saying? It says the United Nations drafted the UNCLOS in 1982, and that is what Russia was bringing out here. Right here. The 1982 UN Convention of the Law of the Sea. That's what he was bringing out, and he was claiming that the United States did not keep that law. And what the fuck does it matter? They were in the high seas according to the United States, so in the United States' eyes, it's free game. It says, and it has been signed by most, though not all countries, it's established territorial waters, continental shelf, and EEZ boundaries, freedom of navigation rights, and mechanisms for conflict resolution. All right. So, in a sense, right now, what are the next steps for Russia? Keep doing what you're doing. Gathering yourself up economically. That's why nothing could be happening right now, because the BRICS nations are so focused on economy, focused on breaking down the petrodollar. And that's why I think another reason a lot of these moves were made as well. Like I mentioned, this is not an oil grab. It was a power grab. United States, in doing this power grab, kind of solidified themselves with staying as the world currency, especially when it comes to trade for oil. And then that's when you get into the subject of the oil and why they did that. The petrodollar. All right. But anywho, this is Ezekiel 38:4, and I'm going to close it off with this. Ezekiel 38:4. It says, I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses, horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Let me read verse 3. I just want to finish off verse 4. I should have just started at 1. It says, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, verse 2, Son of man, set thy face against Gog in the land of Magog. It says the land of Magog because it makes you look into the geography of things. And when you look at the geography and the historical reference of Magog, it is modern day Russia today. So this is a prophecy about Russia. All right. It says the prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, thus saith the Lord, behold, I am against thee, Gog, and the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. And then you read verse 4. So that's what their next step is going to be ultimately, and that's what's going to happen. And it goes down and it reads off their allies and who they're going to link with. And you can, in most of these countries that are mentioned in Ezekiel 38, 5, and 6 are who they are allied with right now. You know, who Russia is allied with right now. Okay. It says why Russia is treading carefully after the ousting of the Kremlin ally Maduro. Exactly what I'm saying. There's not much step you can take right now, but an opportunity will present itself for you to take a different step. And I'm talking directly to the Russians. All right. And again, Russia-U.S. tensions ratchet up after oil tankers seized in the North Atlantic. So this is happening. You know, the scriptures are unraveling, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So let's just keep an eye on this. Lord willing, I was edifying. I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Chakodash, double honors to the apostles, elders, great millstone, rule, and teach well. Peace, love, salutation to the elect 144 first fruit. Until the next time, I'd like to say shalom, and like always, repent, for Yahweh Shai is coming back sooner than what me and you believed. All right, shalom.